Yeah, it feels fun to share. This song is called Crucible, and it's a song that I wrote in 2019 in January. I had taken an 8 days of a sabbatical of internet and of work and went into a recording retreat, which is something that I like to do for myself as a creative. And I didn't get anything done on this retreat. It's the first time I've set up a full container for that long, 8 days. But I couldn't focus on a project. I didn't have it in me. I was working on projects outside of that, but I had given myself this space for a reason. And the only thing that happened during that 8 days was I wrote this song, Crucible. And I was going through a really heart-heavy time during that moment. I was having a challenging experience with someone who I consider a soulmate, and we were having a chapter of our friendship that we weren't seeing eye to eye, and my heart was hurting a lot for that. And I was meditating a lot on the nature of infatuation and the nature of being delighted in the muse that comes through people that we connect with really deeply and powerfully, and how when those connections of deep heart fire suddenly burn and phase, what that feeling feels like of kind of being weightless and suspended. And for me, it feels like sometimes being in between worlds. And I also felt a lot at that time, my heart was just burning on fire. I felt like I was in a crucible, basically, and going back and forth between these moments of delight and also, terrible. And so that is what the song's about. And yeah. Something that isn't real, couldn't be lost, couldn't be found. I've been wondering how long I could bear to feel stuck in the sound between the sky and the ground, hovering in suspension. I disappear as everything I've come to know surrendered and offered to the records of remembering this longing is such a and truth be told, I'm not sure that I ever did. But in the spark I saw the art of a memory making its way down the halls of my darkest dreams. There were portraits on the walls of the lovers I had lost in the fires of a dawning that couldn't come soon enough, and maybe I had it wrong. Pictures in my mind, so many shapes, so many faces every time I chase the sun. What do I find? Pleasures untasted, moments I wasted wandering the realms of regret. You disappear as everything we came to be to one another's been broken by your hunger I don't have much more to give. And truth be told, I'm not sure that I ever did. But in the spark I saw the art of a melody making its way down the trails of my sweetest dreams. There were poems in the flowers, in the shimmering nightlight was moving to the muses. There was only us, you of course, the picture of an angel's soul was on fire with the love that I'd been aching for. All the while the edges of my heart beat against the walls of a mind that was shattering. Death, don't you come, I'm having way too much fun. Death, don't you come, I'm having way too much fun. Death, don't you come, don't you come, don't you dare come. Death, strike me bargain, I'm one of your own kind. Oh, death, so kind of you. Oh, death, it was so kind of you to come. Oh, death, so kind of you. Oh, death, it was so kind of you to come.
Marya Stark. So good to hear you and feel you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Yeah. I've had the pleasure of being with you when music is coming through you many times in lots of different situations or environments. This might be my favorite. Just right here, right in front of me, you and your guitar. I get to feel all of it. It's so magic and special. And magical is definitely a word that I would use over and over and over again to describe you and how it has been to sit in circle with you, sit in ceremony with you. I mean, I don't even know if you remember all the ways that we have sat together in the past, but there's been cacao involved. There's been deep, probably the most profound women's work that I've done in my life. I've done that and with you in circle too. Awesome. So yeah, there's been a lot of portals that we've been able to be in presence with each other. So beautiful to sit here with you and hear you and feel you. And thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm happy to be here with you in the intimacy and the circle ways we get to be in periphery with each other and circle in, and then get to have this quality time. It's fun.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I've been definitely keeping up with you with your newsletter, which I love. Aww. I highly recommend to anyone who wants just like an absolute like shot into the veins of pure inspiration and creativity. I feel like every time I read it, I always, whenever I get, there's so much email that, I'm just like, delete. There's just so much. But yours, I'm always like, let's hear. Yay! Because there's poems and there's art and there's beauty and there's you and flower and there's something always special in there. Which I so highly value. And I mean, there's just so much. You are like pure. I wonder if you have an awareness of like how pure creative, pure creativity you are.
I think I have an awareness of like pure creativity as being something I'm a part of. And so I think I experience like an urge to merge with the thing that exists. And so it's hard to see myself as something different than how other people are part of the same thing. I think I just am really obsessed with it, of finding my place with it in collaboration with it. And so yeah, it's like more kind of like a meta view of like, wow, there's this life emerging as constant magic and creative potential. Like I want to play. It feels like that's my sense of it. And so I think, hearing you say, it's like, oh, I'm glad you sense my like love of playing with the universe. Like let's play together.
God, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah. Yes, playing. There's so much play. And yeah, these weeks, I mean, I guess, because I know you've been telling me you're like in the middle of a move. So I'm curious, like the play factor, also the hard potential factor, like just what's alive for you these days?
It's a good question. I'm in a lot of ways, there's ways that I love to be external and play, but I tend to be a very nesty internal being. Like I'm really happy when when I get to be at home for a while and my house is clean and like I get to just be in the rhythm and the groove of creativity at home. I love that. Mm-hmm. And when my home is in transition, all of that, there's just a sense of like, wow, so many things are moving at a time, and there's a lot of things happening. And what's interesting is that these 2 weeks as I'm in between homes, I'm actually getting to be super creative. I'm meeting with multiple creative allies and collaborators. We're having this thing and we're actually there's movement happening in terms of production. And so I wouldn't say I'm any less creative right now, but what I can sense in my system is that there's a way that I love to be with creative, like listening and musing and being with the softer voices. It's really challenging when the root system is disturbed. So I feel like, and I notice that I get the opportunity to be in the mirror of that, of like, oh wow, I'm in the cycle of creation when things are changing. I'm in a changing of the seasons. Like things are being uprooted and trying to find their new roots. And like this is also part of the cycle. It's just not my preferred part of the cycle because I tend to track my progress creatively based on measurements that are hard to keep up with during times of these kinds of big uprooting and changes. And from like a meta view, I can see all of that. I was like, wow, this was all part of the bigger scheme of things to get these things in order. And so it's no less a part of that magic that I'm like hunting all of the time, or like I'm always courting this particular flavor of the muse, and I'm always in a just lesson of coming back to myself of like, I'm always part of it. And this is also part of the thing that I love. But it's my least preferred chapter of how I like to be a part of creative, like a spirit. I really love, again, when things are just set up and I get to take time off and really have a dedicated time of being in the emergent, which we're having right now. This is a different kind of version of that, which feels really good. And I love when I get to do that with just my creative tools and playmates, and that's really fun. And so it's harder to do that when your home's in boxes and in storage. And
do you have specific creative tools and playmates you play with?
Oh, so many. I have so many tools. Oh gosh. Well, I'm someone who loves to collaborate, and so there's different songwriters that I love to spend time with, and we get to kind of be bouncing off of each other and playing in that way. One of my playmates I got to see just a couple days ago. They live in Ashland, and so Travis, he's one of my favorite collaborators and partners. We love to create little stories and muses. We're making a collaborative album right now. That's super fun. And there's a lot of people in my life that I make music with that are especially like it's soul nourishing. I have a crew of ladies right now, all singer-songwriters, where last year we're meeting once a week and writing songs every week based on a prompt that we would all decide together, and then we would come back and share each other the songs that we wrote that we were like, here's our song. And that was this particular kind of playmate energy of like, oh, here are my soul sisters, and we're all muses, and we're all in the stream of trying to like discover the outer edges of our creative soul and self, and having just that regular time together. We get to come and share the stories of our heart, share like what's going on in our lives, and like, oh, okay, here's my song that I wrote, or here's this, I didn't write a song this week because I couldn't get it together because all this other crazy shit was happening, but here we are now. And so those are the kinds of environments that I love to have with play and creative and tools. Instruments mostly, and instruments and recording equipment.
Got it. Yeah. Do you have a song that from that group
Oh,
that
yeah.
was recent?
A song that I wrote from that.
When you said, when you were like, this is what's going on, and this is the song that came from that.
Yeah. What's a song that I know a song well, any of those songs well enough? Oh, okay, yeah. One of the songs that came from that time is, it's this one. Did you catch a song upon the wind or carve it from the stone? Did you hear it coming o'er the mountain? Read its scripted bones. Did you feel from the forgotten place the space between your toes? Did you taste the color of its melody, dance, rhythms, prose? Did it come to you like lightning would, or slowly through the veil? Did its sonnet climb right out your throat? From the darkness it escaped. Did it take you on its journey through the faces of your past? Did the memory last long enough to turn phrase from their grasp? Did it chase you in your dream time, cast its burden on your chest? Did it wake you 'neath the moonlight? Did it even let you rest? Did it startle you by telling truth? You swore silence till your death. Did you let it have its way with you? This music on your breath. How did the song come? 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 How did the song? How did the song? How did the song?
Yay, so good. Okay, where did that one come from?
That one came from, just thinking about how do songs come. Just musing on different conversations I've had and reading the book Big Magic and Elizabeth Gilbert's and some of the things that her words were speaking to my mind of how do creative ideas come? Do they come and there's all these little doorways to songs. Sometimes you just have to have enough space between the space of a moment to be able to use anything to kind of focus softly enough on it to be able to see a story arising, and then all of a sudden this thing's happening and music's arising. Sometimes songs come like that. I love when that happens, and this one certainly did. It was did you catch a song upon the wind? That was just the first line. I was like, oh yes, and then it just, or what else happened? Or what other ways could happen? It was just more of a song that came from curiosity, of asking fun questions. And I think it's one of my favorite practices right now is asking interesting questions, asking my own mind, wow, what's another way I can frame how I'm perceiving something rather than saying something is so, and having kind of a fixated thing is, oh, how can I get more curious or open? And it opens doors to other possibilities. It opens the orientation to seeing more of what's in the room. Mm-hmm. And so that's where that song came from. Is that that gift, that pivot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that one. Mm. It was beautiful. Yeah. I felt while you were singing, or somewhere along in the last little bit, where it reminded or dropped in that you have been offering a course, or is it a course? It's something where it's the voice.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. I've done a lot. Well, I teach, I have different courses that I offer. Mm-hmm. I mean, my work right now is I'm building a platform called Temple of the Muse. And in Temple of the Muse, we're playing with a lot of different courses. There's one that's for vocal core resonance, which is with my brother and my beautiful ally, Elijah Ray. We created this whole room, vocal core resonance, which is just a whole world of vocal play and the imagination and becoming more in the body and strong with the voice. And then some of the other rooms in the temple have to do with just courting the muse, right? Courting the muse is really about following those lines of curiosity and desire and play and opening doors and creating songs. And then I think what you might be talking about is voice of my womb, which is really sitting inside of the work that I really love, which is, it feels like initiatory level work. It's really taking women, womb bleeding bodies that have bled and understood, like have gone through that process, and taking them through a journey to explore themselves as a creative being through the lens and through the seat of the womb. And then working also with songwriting as a soul craft, as a way to cultivate intimacy with our own kind of process as a mirror of what's alive for us. And then the voice also as a way to open the vessel and the channel. So I love Voice of My Womb. That's kind of the thing that has been happening a couple times a year. Doing one that's 9 months coming up, which feels like a big sort of moving from a 3-month process to a 9-month process. Feels really like it's where my leading edge is as a facilitator and just as a seer into women's journeys who go through this process that like in 3 months we really open the gates and we touch on all of this magic. And I'm super curious of what happens if we stay there longer together, because I know that work has been so influential in how I've unfolded in my own creativity and my creative path and my sense of just self and my connection to my voice and coming more online and becoming more alive. And so I love taking others through that process, or at least the way that I know how, and just take them through an exploration of like, wow, what is the relationship between my voice and my creativity and my womb and these cycles and stages of my life and these rites of passage as a woman and the blood and sex and death, and how do all of these things interweave into some like a path of facing the mystery and the mythic within myself and within the emergent, divine framing, and how do I view myself in relationship with the world as a creator being. That's what I love to do, and I love the music that has come through to support that particular body of work. I feel like there's this like all of this, like I feel like it, in my world as a creator, there's like different sort of threads or different ranges that I feel like I get to tune into sometimes in creating like different voices or different architectures of song. And like some of the first one I shared tonight is like, more vulnerable, like what's really inside, like kind of from inside and out, and then some that are more playful and these kind of like floating ones, and then these other songs that really just feel like they're prayer and they're for singing together and being in this collective we energy of healing. And those songs feel, so it's been fun when those songs come in and they get to be with groups of women all singing them together. It's been so enriching.
With those courses, and with the Voice of the Womb, especially because it sounds like it's such deep work. And I mean, mythical, the mythical within each of us. I mean, I feel like that so rarely comes up, and when you say it, it's very like invoking. And I'm curious how much in those is actually singing and songwriting. How much of it's actually just like self, getting to know self. Like I'm assuming it's like we were saying, like women or blood-bodied women, and like how much of it is like the women really just getting to know themselves and their bodies and then their own inner creativity. How much of it's actually vocalization, how much of it,
all of it. Yeah, it's all of it. Well, it's we do different chapters within different, we do all of these things kind of interwoven with each session. So we do different work on vocal meditations and ways to work with the voice to expand our perception of how we're singing and how we're relating with our own sound in the world. And then
would there be a way to give an example of that?
Yeah, so there's this example. So we'll just take a deep breath in, just tuning into the body for a moment. Just right, like acknowledging, hey, I've got a body, it's so cool. I'm just feeling into the heartbeat. Heart's just beating away, this consistent rhythm that's always been there. From the womb to the tomb, it's just keeping us going. And then just taking a moment to hum, just greeting our whole body with the sound of our own voice as it moves through our body, connecting and lighting up all of our cells. We'll just do a hum together, see if we can feel the sound of our voice actually connect to every cell of our body. You ready for that? Mm-hmm. Okay, deep breath in together. Just a quick little moment of getting to play with the voices, like going inside, like letting our voice connect to our inner sight, our inner imagination, letting it lubricate. This is a practice I love to start with, just an inner tone, an inner massage of the cells. And this is kind of a setup of like, how can we use the voice as a tool to connect to our body and regulate our nervous system, which can sometimes be floating, sometimes we're popping up into different mental places. I can just sing to my heart real quick. I have to just sing to my actual body. I think a lot of people are, with vocal work specifically, it's like, how do I get my voice out there? And it's like, we start with like, how do I get my voice in here? How do I actually let the voice move through me as this miracle of vibration that is just now a phenomenon that I'm allowing myself to open and receive and participate in. And I find that that's a really fun place to then start building the language of literacy of how else to use it out there.
Yeah, you were describing how like it with because I was asking how much of it's actually like song work. And I think part of the reason why I ask is I've always been a little curious, because when I was growing up, I joined a professional girls course when I was 9.
Oh, fun.
And I was in that until I was 17 or something. It was my whole childhood. It took everything. And the way that we learned voice and that is it's so structured, right? And we were learning opera. I mean, it's so much about, it sounds a certain way, and especially in choral work, you have to have the tone just be like I feel like I learned voice within so many specific parameters that I feel like over the rest of my life I had to unlearn so much. And I feel like part of what has always really like sparked my interest is I feel like in a way I would have loved to have started with this, which is more just like, wow, there's this voice, and what is in my voice, and what is it, how does it move in me and through me, and then what's my the sound that wants to come out of me. That was part of my musings of when I saw your offering, because I was like, oh my gosh, connection to yourself, connection to your own creative center and space, and then seeing how that sound moves. And then I did get curious of like, I wonder how much of it is people or women who really have no musical experience. How musical is it? How much is it?
There's a wide range. There's a lot of people that come through that course that have never written a song. They don't have any musical background. They've just always felt, and I feel this is true. I mean, this is part of my core philosophy. I think that all of us human beings are musical by nature. It's part of our birthright, and it's so enriching, and yet we've been enculturated in a way where there's all of these parameters and rules, and music is only for the super talented people. What is talent? If I'm gonna be happy, I can accomplish. And there's all these like jagged layers to this thing that's really feels good, and it's healthy for our brain, and it's healthy for our spirit, and it's something that moves through communities. And so this is a space for all the people that are like, hey, I have songs in me, like some music, I love music, and I want to explore myself through this medium. And so we're using song. We're definitely getting into songwriting. I teach songs, and from really simple to more complex styles. And there's no pressure to achieve anything. There's just invitation and space made, and coaching and developing. But really it's about being in a creative process. And it's the process of relating to the music where the transformation happens. It's not on the other side of finishing something and then sharing it, although that's also part of the process. But I think that a lot of people miss out on the gifts of connecting to these places of their potential because they have these rules around how it should be and in comparison to people who are like at cultivating excellence around it. And they're missing out on doing art for art's sake, and allowing the music to open up parts of themselves that they get to connect, like music is so powerful and songwriting is so powerful. Any creative process can do it, but I really love songwriting as a way to assimilate complex layers of information. Like we write a song given a prompt based on some story that we've been unearthing in our womb and our history. Now all of a sudden, like, oh wow, I'm processing my emotions, I'm processing my history with my parents, I'm processing my childhood, I'm getting to like explore language and be in my body, and now I'm writing in my pen, I'm doing this hemispheric integration, and now I'm actually sharing it outside. Like that's a lot going on to see and have like this experience of returning of like, oh, I get to have my experience live in a time capsule now. Like it gets to live outside of me, and like that gets to be a gift now that I can offer my community or offer my sisters that are all holding space and sharing these pearls of our own vulnerability and our journey and our distillation. Like wow, now we're all sitting in this treasure chest of each other's willingness to go on the dive and just like get curious and enjoy themselves. And then I have songwriters in there, they're like, I want to go to this next level, or I want a space to contain myself because my life's so busy, or I have this urge to create and I know I can do it, but I don't ever give myself the gift of the time and space. So it's accountability for that as well. So it's a wide range. And again, my background's in expressive arts therapy, music therapy, and so everything's coming from the lens of process and not product. It's coming from like, wow, creating music is a transformational alchemy. And what we're studying about the womb wisdom is its own kind of alchemy. And then the voice, learning the voice is an alchemy. And we're bridging all these alchemies together to go through initiating ourselves into our own capacity to hold ourselves and to allow magic and medicine to move through us. And ultimately it's a gift for ourselves, but I've seen a lot of people go through that and then their gifts unlock in other ways, just because they gave themselves the gift of getting to do creative therapy for themselves or creative explorations. And then some of them are making albums and singing. Some of them are starting their own businesses. There's just like this flourishing that gets to happen of like, wow, I know myself more deeply. I can sit more in the center of who I am and unearth these other gifts that I want to give to my community. And I feel like all of that gets to, song is such a beautiful doula and midwife for our souls to come online.
It is. Yes. Yeah. When you were talking about, you've mentioned the womb many times, and so I feel like that's a nice topic too. I feel like one thing I've learned over the years, and I'm wondering if you've found this to be true as well, like is this a truth or is this something I'm making up that it's a truth? I don't know. It's a truth for me that the womb and the voice are just so intimately connected. Yeah. Like the vocal cords are like actually even kind of look like it, yeah, and totally. It's so like connected and it's similar in a lot of ways, and like there's a shared mucus that forms on the vocal cords that's on the inside of the vaginal canal. That's a similar like kind of mucus. And there's other ways, like if you open and drop your jaw, it can actually like relax and open the cervix. They say that that's like one of the reasons why, this is one of the reasons I see, like when women open their mouths during childbirth, it can actually help open and relax. So that's like, like that big kind of thunder song is a big part of actually opening and allowing
the baby to come out. And there's a lot of ways. I think it's so, a lot of this is poetic, I'm sure there's some other cool scientific information which I'd love to learn about. But a lot of my connections with the voice and the yoni and the womb at this point were very philosophical, and it appears that way because the way I see it is like we got innies and outies. We're to this portal. It's like the both entrances and the exits of the portals are there. Here we are. And so much of what we experience, I think, with vulnerability, like one of the pieces that I always talk about with the voice and the womb is that it's when we, just like sexual intimacy, it's like, wow, we're bringing someone like into our innermost depths. And I think it's the same with when we share the sound of our voice. It has the potential, especially when we're really relaxed and dropped in and open to aspects, it can have the potential to be so intimate and vulnerable because we're sharing the sound that is literally coming from inside of us out. It's like it's taking this breath that's just come into our hollow vessel and like expressing now these images and sounds, attempting to like come into you and relates this experience that I'm having. And I think that with intimacy, we're doing that as well. And so there's a powerful bridge there. And I think that this is one of the reasons why, at least for me, it's been really a journey to be witness, to share my voice in a way where I'm actually giving us opening into wow, this is actually what I think and feel, and this is how I see the world, and this is what my experiences are, because wow, I'm actually like opening up different aspects of like my nervous system to be witnessed in and known and heard, and to have that come on the winds of sound. And like it's powerful medicine. And so I think that answers your question. I think there's a lot of ways that these places are connected, and I think that one of them, they're both also really, a lot of worlds can be completely created with both. Like worlds are just created through the womb, and worlds are created through our voice, and worlds are created through us. Worlds can be destroyed through us. Like it's just, it's a portal for life and death. And that's a big, when we really look at it and hone in on it, it's like, wow, that something is happening through us as human beings that is so, I keep coming back to this, like it's so powerful and magical. Like what is it to be alive in a fucking body and make stuff and relate and go through these life experiences. And so I think that for myself, and when I work with women, the journey of really coming into the understanding of the womb has helped me, I'll speak for myself, land in a greater compassion for the bigger challenges I've encountered in my life, and have more compassion for the complexity of the human experience. And so it helps me speak more congruently and lovingly with others, and when I can, when I'm capable of being on in a way where I can match that, it just helps me be more on. And so
being connected with your womb.
Yeah, being connected to the womb. Yeah, I'm doing the work around the womb, doing like the look and the inventory of seeing like, wow, how do my womb cycles really impact my energy? How do I change? What was it like to go through a birth? What was it like to go through a first blood? What was it like to experience? What's it like to experience my life through a desire to want to come back in the body? And yeah, I find that as I do more work to center and ground in my womb, I have a lot more insights around these things that they just thrill me. They thrill me. And ultimately, I think, like I said before, like I'm so driven, like I have this urge to create. And so all of this has been kind of a result of me asking like, oh, how can I create more of what I want? Or like, how can I fulfill more of the things that I'd like to be doing creatively, or like get more of these ideas that are hovering in the mythic realms, like through all the way birthed into the world. And so doing both of the work to connect these two has been absolutely essential in order to, create results.
Totally.
Yeah. That was a ramble.
It was beautiful. Yeah. It's always poetry out of your mouth and out of your fingers, as far as I'm concerned, when you type too. It's just poetry. I don't think you can do anything other than poetry. Yeah. There's a couple. Well, I am interested if there's a song that feels alive for you. I feel like you said there's songs that come that are, I forget the first, it was like, but then you said there's more fun and playful, and then there's ones that come through that are like sacred. Yeah. They're like the sacred songs, right? Mm-hmm. So I got interested in that, like, maybe there's like a sacred, like more for the sacred. And then you said there's also so much womb. There's like so many womb songs. Yeah. And so I got interested, like, is there any alive music in you that are maybe in that category? Yeah, the category of the like womb, the magical womb songs. Yeah, right? The magical womb songs. Yeah. Let me just find me at rose blooms when she is ready, when she is ready. Not a moment too soon. A rose blooms when her velvet darkness to the dawn. A rose blooms when her sweet honey is tasted by every petal, swollen with become and bursting at the hips, air wrapped with fragrance, join the dance of spring. A rose blooms when she's ready, when she's ready. Not a moment too soon. Lineage of the grandmothers, lineage of the velvet prose, lineage of the crimson waters, lineage of the rose, lineage of the Magdalene daughters, lineage of the scarlet coats, lineage of the visions they brought her back to the heart, the lineage of the rose blooms when she is ready. She's ready, not a moment too soon. I am but maiden diamond in the rough, painting wings of satin blushing, petal temples tender to the touch. I let you in, I let you in. I am blind.
blossoming slowly to the light. I'm remembering all of the phrases, sunlight, language, dew, mist in the night, flowering into poems for the ages. I am Rose Mother in full bloom, script of ruby, fire and blazing, petals fall slowly by the moonlight, drinking the wisdom of all that was tasted. I am potpourri danced upon the earth, holy death takes nothing from my beauty. I am ground into the rosary beats, come sing your prayers over me. Come sing your prayers over me. The rose blooms, rose blooms. Lineage of the grandmothers, lineage of the velvet prose, lineage of the crimson orders, lineage of the rose, lineage of the Magdalene daughters, lineage of the scarlet coats, lineage of the visions they brought her back to the heart. A rose blooms when she's ready, when she's ready, not a moment too soon.
Tell me about that one.
Gosh, this song came at the end of 2017. I had just gone on this big adventure in my soul. I had been in like kind of a wild ride. It was like the year of the Great American Eclipse. And a couple months later, I started working with Elijah, doing kind of some of this more somatic vocal empowerment exploration of working with the voice in new alchemical ways. It was really fun. And I remember when we first started working, I got really back into my lute pedal after having kind of put it away for a couple of years. And I made a vocal drone, and this song came out. And I had written like a poem about the rose blooming when she's ready, when she just really wants to flourish. And I had sat with that poem for a while. I was like, oh, I really love this. And then when I wrote this song, it felt to me like a homecoming. Like I had written this whole album, Lineage, and that all of the songs on that album were these prayers and kind of these circle songs, these chants around the womb and healing, and some of them were like breaking the silence and clearing the womb of violence and this whole thing, it was awesome. I loved those songs. And before Lineage, I had been working with Scarlet Crow and working kind of these songs of like the alchemical, witchy, dark feminine, like the mythic feminine rising and like kind of these mythic realms, and had been on this ride for many years exploring kind of the darker elements of the grief that I was holding in my own womb and some of the ancestral grief that I had been perceiving and exploring, doing some of the womb work and doing some of the just like, inventory of what I was sensing within kind of where some of the rites of passage had been lost along the way, and the impact that had on me personally of coming into, my womanhood and not really having a rite of passage and having like an extended kind of adolescence and maidenhood and being unboundaried around sexuality and not having a clear container for myself. And many years of doing a lot of beautiful work with the womb was so helpful in navigating the challenges that had culturally for me. And it kind of landed me as like in this passion of like, oh, I really want to provide this for other women and for myself especially. And when this song came through, Rose Lineage, it felt like the song that I had been trying to write for 10 years in terms of like going into the scarlet moon mysteries and like kind of the dark witchy stuff, like really just exploring, like untangling, I'm gonna say, some of the knots that I was holding in my own body around this powerful energy of the vitality and the potential of the womb. And when this song came, it felt like all of those had lifted out. I felt like this return, and it was, it felt really liberating. And then it got to be the closing song on my album Sapphire, and it felt like it was just a beautiful way to kind of encapsulate again another, like, this big inner mythic journey that I had been going on, that was really centered in grief and in navigating like I'm gonna say, like, working with sort of perceptions of multiple dimensions of self and multiple dimensions of the world, and how to navigate these like complex ideas and still be in the world and like be here. And I'd say in 2017 I was really riding a wave of wanting to be in these like more magical realms and like really struggling to be here. And I felt that when this song came through, it was an invitation to bring the magic in, that like, oh, these magical realms are here. They get to be, there's a bridge between the two, and I get to participate in being part of that bridge. And it felt really, safe and healing, and like also a connection to, I'd say, the ancient lineage. We hear about this word lineage, and we hear about these words of there's this like connection to belonging. And I'd say that there's a lot of wounds around broken lineage and wounds around displacement, especially for people like me who have European background and descendants from European cultures, that there's been a lot of displacement from our own kind of cultural lineage magics and alchemical kind of animist level, like, the deep relatedness to the earth magics and the systems. There's a lot of burning of all of that, and there's a lot of, the Catholic Church coming and kind of decimating some of those connections, and other stuff going on. That's a simplification. And so I could feel where that was part of the rattle and a part of the tension that I was holding in my body around like being in a culture that just felt so disconnected to itself and to the rhythms of the rhythms of a woman's body and the rhythms of a moon cycle, and it just felt really lopsided, and I was feeling tired and exhausted. I think that was the urge for me of like, I want to reconnect to my womb so I can calibrate and participate in creating more of an awareness around these subtler things that are going on to help bring balance to my culture and to at least my like community and the people that I'm interacting with, because I don't want to live by this kind of rhythm of go, go, go. I think it's killing, it's not going in a direction that I feel congruent with. And so this song, was like a landing in the softness of like, the flower, we can't force the flower petals apart. We can't like go force it apart and like extract the beauty. I think there's so much extraction of going on, and this was just a song for me to be in the prayer of honoring the sweetness of the arising and allowing all of the cycles of the rose to have their day, including the potpourri and the death and the return, and to get to be in the honoring of that within myself, so I could be just a little more sane. More sane, just a little bit.
I love after all of that. It's like just like me. That was
it's like a cutting area.
Is Sapphire the most recent album that you've put out?
Yes, that is like this. I love that baby so much. It's just this like magical. She's like the crown jewel of the whole realm right now. I love her. Co-created that album with Joshua Penman. I'm so grateful for his collaboration in that, and everyone who participated in that. Andy, who mixed it and engineered it, and all the musicians, and Tessa, who did all of the incredible visual art, and Sydney, who made the images, and Herb that made the paintings. Like, there's just so many people that rallied. Like, gosh, probably like over 20 people that were involved in that project, and it's so, I love it so much. It felt very like, we did it. Yeah.
When did it come out?
It came out a year, like in September 16th of 2020, in the middle of fucking pandemic weirdness. And like, it was so intense, you know, like in August, like that chapter was so strange. This August, the fires came through in Santa Cruz, and I got really terrified. My body felt really like, I'm getting the fuck out of town. And we packed up and we went to visit Arizona, and it was the first time like I had traveled anywhere after being completely like in my cocoon at home during like the first 5 months of lockdown reality, and so to go, it was such a juxtaposition to then go travel to Arizona. And then my grandma passed away like a week after I got to visit her, so I got to have like my one last meeting with my grandma. And then I came home, and then like 5 days later released out this album that we'd worked on for, you know, years and years. And we were planning, 2020, we're gonna have a big tour, it's gonna be awesome, it's gonna be so fun. That plan just completely changed. I was like, well, how can we still have a really magical time? And so we did. We had like an event online. Tessa made these beautiful lyric videos, and we got to have this like hour-long listening party, which was actually really fun. I'm glad I got to sit with some of my closest allies and friends and community, and just have a listening party for this thing that we made, and a visual listening party, which was just this ecstatic experience. And it was so funny because this whole prayer of Sapphire was about grief and the lungs and the water prayer. And here we are in the middle of COVID, which is like a lung disease in the middle of fire season, like bringing forth this like sapphiric water grief prayer. It was pretty interesting. It was just one of those moments where I was like, okay, there's magic is afoot, and I didn't see this coming, but here we are in the medicine of like, this is the moment that this thing that I made is happening. It's not the way I wanted it to happen. It's not the way I thought it was going to happen, but it's clearly happening for a reason. For me, at least, it was very mythic. I was like, okay, I needed this. I like, some future part of myself could scout that, like, yeah, you're gonna be working towards this thing right here. We're gonna land it right over here in the middle of this like total crazy time, and it's gonna be great.
Perfect. In all the ways that are like not that they are, right? It's not always the lesson of perfect. It's like, it's always not what we think it's gonna be.
You just gotta go with it. Yeah, I feel like that was perfect. Like, it was both. Yeah, it was. Yeah, when I look backwards in my life at this time, you know, when we look back at this incredible period of our time, like, there would be no better way for that to have happened. That would have been more meaningful, really, for me. So even though some things, don't go the way that, like, my identity root of really preferred and loved, there is something really meaningful about what happened, and embracing that. It's like, keep on keeping on. It's like, all right, there's that one. And it has been almost a year. And I still feel like, producing a big body of work and then kind of looking back at it is always a trip. Because when you're in it, you're so inside of this thing. Like, you like built breath, you built this whole place. Like, you're in that thing. And then once it opens, it's like, oh, other people are in it now. And you're like, oh, wow. And you kind of, it's hard to see the build. You're like, wow, I know what it was like, but now I'm living in this experience and getting to be it, and you're still running it. And like, there's always more stuff to do. I feel like it's similar with that. You're like, it's kind of driven. These has to happen, and then it births, and it's like, okay, now I can take perspective on the gifts and the challenges of what happened. And I'm still taking inventory. That was such a big process on a soul level to do all of that. It's so fun. I'm grateful, and I'm so grateful for everyone that got to play with me and gave it, gave their gift to it. And
is there anything you're maybe the most like proud of, or that feels the most heart singing about that? Or
it's hard to say. I mean, I love the music so much. I love that, I think I love that there was a really deliberate thing that got seeded at the beginning of do this thing, and I feel really proud that I accomplished the thing. I got to the thing that was seeded, or I got as much that I could, with the circumstances, and so I feel really happy to have realized something that I had an intuitive sense of what it might be at the beginning, and then I got to be surprised at the whole unfolding of it, and is what it is what I thought it would be. It's closest to that I've ever come. So that feels really good. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. And it's always a mystery. It's a discovery process, but to have just oh wow, there was a seed of some specific thing, and we found as much of it as we could. Yeah. Uh-huh.
You've mentioned grief multiple times. That album, that was maybe part of the seeding of it.
Yeah.
Was grief.
Definitely. Yeah. I think there were definitely things happening in my life at that time that were really tender. But the heartbeat of the grief for me was, I'm going to say an internalized grief around feeling disconnected from, and almost oh, have I always felt disconnected from being fully belonging to the earth and belonging to this life, and I was in this process around baby or no baby, or is it safe to have a baby here, does my partner want to have a baby, and there's grief around that and complexity around that, and then there was just grief around the jobs that I was doing at that time and not really feeling connected to what I really wanted to be doing. This was before I started really teaching Voice of My Womb and all of the vocal alchemy stuff and Voice of My Womb and Courting the Muse, all the muse stuff that's happening in Temple of the Muse. That year I could feel the grief of not living my purpose. And even though I was doing awesome stuff and I was building up to it, it did feel oh, I'm not really connected to what I am urged to do from within. And that was a big grief. And then there was just these pockets of grief, I think, from just being a kid and not having the literacy or the ways, the support that I particularly needed to go through all the layers of grief and different, just my own psychology at that time, just to be attuned to and tended to, and what I think the quality of presence that children really need to be co-regulate and emotionally unfold. I could feel that I had built up to a certain amount that in 2017 it all just exploded. I was oh wow, I have a reservoir of unprocessed grief that was big. I had all of these stories popping off. Oh, it's this and this, but it felt so much bigger than all of those things. It totally just kind of took over and unraveled, and I let it, and it felt really good. It felt really blissful, and it was chaotic. It was total it was a roller coaster, and Sapphire was born from that. The whole, the vision of Sapphire, the message of Sapphire, the medicine of it, and everything, and a lot of the songs came from there, and then it just got to be poured into that project for the following 2 years, and it was really awesome. Yeah.
Wow. So grief, you said grief, and then lungs and water.
Yeah.
So how they're connected.
Yeah, so in Chinese medicine, grief is connected to the lungs. And so lungs and breath. And I'm saying grief is water too, because it's the tears and the water element. So lately it's just, I connect them in that way. The movements of the water body. And Yeah, and what I could tell with my own lungs is just ways that in order to kind of suppress how we are feeling, sometimes we'll teach ourselves as young kids to like breathe more kind of shallowly. And I could tell that I was like, some of those habits were starting to reveal. I'm like, oh, I'm like cutting myself off from my own feeling right now. I'm like, oh, here are these just nuanced, deeper somatic awarenesses that were coming on. Like, oh wow, there's these just whole places of feeling and discomfort. Oh wow, there's just more tears that want to come meet them, but I like, oh, where am I cutting myself off because I don't want to lose myself in the deep end of and like go flailing about on the waves. And I was in a beautiful session a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about this phenomenon of losing ourselves in grief, and kind of the both the like longing to do so, but also the wariness of, oh, if I let myself really go, am I ever gonna come back? And my friend said, oh, you just gotta realize that you can be grounded. You can like touch the earth at the bottom of the ocean. That like no matter where you are in the ocean, you can actually touch the bottom of the earth. That way, no amount of tears or grief could ever be ungrounded. And I love that. That's been humming lately. Like, oh yeah, I love the ability to frame movement, like allow the body to move the energies that want to come through, and without ever feeling like we're gonna lose it completely. And yeah, it's just I think it's challenging for people in different ways. So what to do with big emotions certainly is for me. Still learning all the time, like, wow, how do I make space for big energies that want to be in motion through me?
Yeah. Has any of that come up recently? Did you get to have you practiced?
Oh, practice. It's so funny. Do I practice crying? I think I'm always doing my best to learn. Like I'm, with different people that I work with for my own somatic understanding and integration, we're always learning new ways to do that. I'm not in like a big cry practice, if that's what you're asking. I'm not sure.
No, it's like big feelings. Not necessarily crying, just any big feelings come up recently, and then what your current working with it is. Because I mean, I know for me, I do like where am I currently at in my journey of like really letting really big feelings come. How do I work with them when they do? Is it feeling more comfortable, less comfortable? Yeah, things like that.
Yeah, I'd say for me right now, I'm getting support in how to do that better, like more effectively. I like when I have big feelings, I like to wrestle. My partner, actually, I like to have my partner come and help me like wrestle with me so I can move with him. Sometimes that helps, and sometimes just dancing really helps. Dancing by myself. I've actually been getting into a practice of like putting on gentle music, and more like gentle music by big feeling, and just kind of rolling around on the ground and letting sound and movement open me. That's been that's really fun when I can give myself the space to do it. And it also feels vulnerable. Like it takes like a certain level of courage for me to be willing to do that. And so I think for me, I'm constantly just getting right to the precipice of like, okay, am I gonna do this thing where I'm gonna really let myself feel the feels? And so it's this a game of inches. Yeah.
Every time, maybe a little bit more, or like maybe we like excavate a little bit more area, and then the next couple times we get to inhabit that area, a little bit more fully.
Yeah,
maybe something like that.
Yeah. And then music, when I can give it to myself, is a great place to let the big feels come.
What do you mean when you can give it to yourself?
I'd say when I can give it to myself, it's this, like I was saying before, I have these weeks where there's a lot of chaos and movement. I have a harder time giving myself the gift of just a couple hours of exploration of emotion and spontaneity with the guitar. So it's like, when I give that to myself, it feels really amazing. That it's something that when there's a lot going on, I have to make a plan about, or I have to make a deliberate action towards. So like, this is medicine. Do this thing right now. Sometimes you just forget. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. You mentioned to have kids or not have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've landed somewhere?
I feel in this moment kind of ambiguous about it. It was really like driving the conversation for a minute, and I think I was going through the intensity of the hormonal cycle that some people go through. I didn't know I was going to go through it, and then like 32 hit, and I was like, whoa, this is a thing. The hormones are taking over my brain. They're taking over how I think. It's taking over like all of my magical, like all of the magic is like aligning towards these thoughts, and it was really profound. Like I learned so much about myself and like humans, and it opened these doors to such deep conversations with people that I love, and it continues to bear fruits just to be thrust into the inquiry of having a baby or not. It's just like, wow, so many life shifts at this point. I keep it, it's like, it's possible, it's not something I'm currently making plans about, and I feel a bit like I'm gonna say weary or just tentative. I have a lot of voices inside of me that that are kind of like a no about it at this time, and I have other voices that are like, don't say no, and I have other voices that are like, well, we'll see. And I always imagined that if I had babies, it would be like 5 years from now, like after I've kind of gotten some of these other intense creative urges out of my system. And it's hard. I'm also this place where I'm like, I really love my lifestyle and I love creating so much, and I just got into this like super dynamic flow. And so I've been in that place of like, oh, do I have to be a mom? Do I want to be a mom? Do I have to be a mom? And it's not clear. It was like a couple years ago, I was like, it was like the center of the whole conversation, and now it's periphery. It's kind of like over here. It's not off the table, but it's not the thing I'm mainly interested in.
That was part of why I asked, because I mean, having 2 children, I know how much like of the creative juices go towards the rearing of these beings, right? So I'm like a little curious, like, okay, is it gonna, because it takes a lot of that energy, right? It just takes a lot of that energy. And so what you were also just saying, you said like you have a lot of creative inspiration or desire or urgings right now, and I like, do you want to share any of those? I'm kind of curious what's moving in you right now.
Well, building Temple of Muse feels really important to me. I just like to I'm having fun playing as an entrepreneur. I'm having fun playing with building in those worlds and creating spaces to, like, I feel like a lot of my mother energy gets really expressed in those kinds of supports. And I feel like albums. I've big creative energies going towards creating more albums. I'm mixing an album right now, and I can't wait to start recording my next one. Like, I just want to make as much music as possible, because I think for me as a younger person, it's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to figure out, how can I record music? How can I learn how to engineer? How can I do this thing? How can I make music videos? How does someone do all of this stuff? And I feel like, oh, I'm in my 30s now. I figured out how to do it, and it's all I want to do. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh, I just want to do this. And also listen to the one who is like, well, that's what you wanted in your 20s. Is it all that you want to do right now? Is that going to change? And when I ask that question, I'm like, oh yeah, it's totally all I want to do. It's like, oh, I want to do it. I want to like create songs and make music and see what other creative possibilities emerge. But a lot of it has to do with just producing the art that I've already written. Like, I've already written so much music, and I haven't produced, I've produced a very small percentage of it.
So you're saying you're mixing in another album right now?
Yeah.
Meaning you've already recorded it?
I've already recorded it. It's all done. We're in the process of, one of the final stages of getting it ready to pop. Yeah, I started recording this album right at the end of Sapphire. Like, we released Sapphire, and that week I went into the studio and started recording this next one. Because I had the urge.
Yeah.
I had the urge, and I was like, well, I'm not touring. I might as well just And I knew we were going to be leaving the area, so I wanted to work with my producer here, Andy. I was like, let's make this thing and let's do it right now. It's COVID. Let's be like, let's not involve a lot of people. And so we were able to just do it in a very small, low key. Like Sapphire was this big, ecstatic, many people involved. It was like all, it was really the vision. It was so fun. And it's way more low key. It's mellow. It's intimate. It's lush. The song. I love the songs on that album, and I can't wait for it to come out.
Is there a theme or anything about this album?
It's so funny. The album's called Weightless, and it's like, I wouldn't say it's like an overarching theme, but it does have this feeling of, it's hard. These songs feel very human to me. Like I would say they're dealing with more of like what I was going through while we were creating Sapphire. I always feel like these songs all got written as like what I was going through personally. Yeah.
So what are like some distilled themes maybe?
It's just like kind of looking at longing from a more human perspective, like humorous, human, like what was I thinking about? And like almost like this wistful of like, it's hard to say. I haven't thought about it. The theme feels like lightness, but also kind of just lightness of being and also being here. And the theme for me was, how can I make an album and feel really like easy about it? That's really the theme. I was like, how can I make something that I love, that's fun, that's like easeful, and how can we do it here and now, and not have a big opulent production, but how can I make something that feels really like earthy and hearty so that I would say that's the theme.
Cool.
And light. Yeah.
So I love how it's like, it feels like these waves or these somethings, right? It's like you were writing those songs when you were in the production of Sapphire, right? Totally. And then what are the songs that you were writing while you were, recording and doing the work with Weightless?
Yeah.
Are they coming?
Totally.
Are you recording them now?
I'm going to record, hopefully I'll record a bunch of those songs coming.
Okay.
And it's, there are waves like that. And I collect songs along the way that find their collections later. It's not linear. Everything's very, like, there's songs that I'm still waiting to record that I wrote like 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And so, but yeah, there was a lot of songs I wrote last year that are kind of split between multiple collections. And some of them are going to come on a collection that I'll produce after Weightless.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm going to keep going. If I'm not having babies, I'm birthing albums. That's the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was the music video process? Do you like that? Do you like that process?
I love making music videos. Well, I'm a theater girl at heart. Yeah, I'm a big theater girl. And I love making music videos. Yeah, and I'm making them with people that I love. And I
saw, I think, at least one of the ones from Sapphire, and they were really neat.
Oh, thank you.
Really neat.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's always fun to come up with an idea and then try and like problem solve and create. Like both of those videos for Sapphire were made with Tessa, who's just one of my closest, longest friends and allies, and it's fun. She's a filmmaker, and it's just fun to be in the visionary process with her. It's like, okay, how do we have this idea? What could happen? And like just piece it together. And it's production. And I'm learning more and more about the art of filmmaking. And I love producing music videos, and I want to keep doing it. Yeah, it's fun ways to tell stories. And I think it's all like any way to tell a good story has me. Captured.
Yeah. Is there anything these days that feels extra just juicy or ripe, or anything you're pondering deeply?
I was, the other day I was pondering, like, just the term muse, because I love the framing of muse as being like in relationship to divinity, or in relationship to self or the world or the emergent. And I was recognizing that a lot of the muse energies for me have been like people or archetypes or nouns or like these kind of doors that are very like something tangible or like intangible, but like I could put it in a frame. And then I had this moment like maybe 2 days ago. I was like, oh, what if questions were the new muse? Or like, what if I could have a muse be, I think this happened at dinner yesterday, where like a verb is the muse, or it's like an action is the muse. And it just sent me on this whole trip of like, oh wow, it expanded the view of like what that word could mean. And so that's juicy to me. I think always just being in the pleasure of finding new doors. And the thing that's really, really juicy, honestly, is like I'm getting a house in a couple of days. It's gonna be a new space to unfold and unpack, and that's the main juice of my life. It's like, oh, how do we get to take up space in an environment where we're not negotiating with other people, we get to just be here together and unpack boxes that I've had in storage for 5 years. Like really take inventory of like, what have I kept with me this whole time, and what can I liberate, and what wants to come with me and why. And so I feel like I'm on the precipice of a big new like end and beginning of a new part of the story for my life, and all my juices there. It feels like you said, you're like, oh, when your babies are having, like, that takes up a lot of your energy. I'd say this whole process with moving and finding a new house and where to be a person of place and where to put my things. Like, that's the rest of a lot of my energy right now.
Yeah.
It's juicy too. Home is juicy. Buying a house is super fucking weird. Like, it's the whole process is so weird. Yeah. It's so weird. Like, how many papers they have you sign. I'm like, oh my God. This is insane.
It is. I agree. I totally agree. Yeah. Is this the first time you bought a house?
It is, yeah.
That's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it terrifying at all, or is it?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a little like stunned at the whole thing. I think I'm gonna have more to say about it once we've closed. We're still in escrow, so it's still like shh. We're not supposed to.
Got it. Totally. Totally.
But yeah, it's still. I'm just still in the quiet observation of the whole process, because it's been so much bureaucracy and like things that I've avoided for so long in terms of adulting or participating in the way our society is set up around assets and ownership and paperwork and all these things. Like, it's so dense. What kinds of like, and I have compassion and humor around like, wow, there's reasons that every one of these papers that I'm having to sign, there's like legal reasons why they've all come into existence. There's like hundreds of weird experiences that people have had where they had to make all these clauses and define all of these terms over and over and over again. Like, that's the result of a bunch of bullshit that has happened before this moment. And here I am participating in like signing an agreement where like, okay, I see the history of what's been totally wacky-do, or trying to negotiate as other humans being like, you own this, but really there's a mortgage on it and you kind of owe them. And I just want a place to put my studio.
Totally.
Like, totally. Okay.
Yeah, if I have to sign these 500 pages, I guess I will.
Yeah. And what's it going to feel like after? So it's juicy in that it's strange, and it's, I think I'm going to have a good laugh on the other side. And
yeah,
like, okay.
And isn't it also a relocation? I mean, you're gonna live in a different town, yeah?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. We're living in a new town. Well, because Santa Cruz, I love Santa Cruz, and so do a lot of other people who have driven up the prices up here. So for us, buying a first time home here was not really in our optimal choice. So we shifted.
Yeah. Are you excited about that shift, or where are you going to land? Are you excited, or?
Excited. I'm grateful to be landing in a place where there's a lot of people that I love, and there's cool community and culture happening. I mourn the things that I love about Santa Cruz, and I also am excited to fall in love with new things. And I think it's hard to say. It's like, oh, am I excited about this? It's complicated. Like I don't know that I would have made the choice if it didn't feel like it was happening with like not to me, but like it was happening without so much of my like, I'm gonna make this decision because I'm excited about it. It's like, oh, we're making decisions in response to life unfolding, and they weren't necessarily part of my long plan, but here we are, it's happening.
Okay.
And so there's a surrendering and a trust that's happening, and I understand that there's grace involved, and excitement, not so much the word.
Got it. Yeah, lots of other stuff.
Feelings.
Totally.
But gratitude and so much to enjoy. Like a lot of fun. Like a lot of things that I love and enjoy about it.
And it seems like maybe another piece of adulting, maybe, I'm not sure, because you and I have never really talked about relationships, but I mean, you're engaged, correct?
Yeah.
And you're co-buying this house. I mean, that kind of feels like a big adulting step too, right?
It's huge. I feel like Faji and I, we've been together a long time, almost 12 years. It'll be 12 years in September. And I feel like this process has been amazing for us in just getting to encounter all kinds of subtle, nuanced things. I'll speak for myself around just like bumping up against the edges of my own mind, and especially with frustration with bureaucracy. And for us to do it together, it's been really cool teamwork for us, and just finding our natural gifts it's helped us both elevate, I think, in what we're both naturally good at with these kinds of decisions and schedules and challenges and organization and these kinds of things. And so it's been awesome. I actually have really enjoyed that process of learning with him and getting to know ourselves better, because we're doing this like weird, stressful thing together. That's been really fun. I can't think of anyone else I'd rather live by a house with than Faj.
Awesome. Are there songs you've written about that relationship?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I don't know if they're the most alive right now, and I would be at some point curious to be like, which ones? Which ones?
I could play a song about Baji. Faj. He likes the songs I've written about him.
Yeah, that's good.
They're always really sweet. I'll keep the light on, so you know that I was home. If you hear my voice upon the wind, know I'm singing you a song. I'll keep the light on, so you know that I was home. If you hear my voice upon the wind, know I'm singing you a song. Ooh, ah, la, la, ooh, ah, yeah. Ooh, ah, la, la, ooh, ah, yeah. Ooh, ah, la, ooh, ah, yeah. Ooh, ah, la, ooh, ah, yeah. Hear the humming of the trees around ya. Breathe in peace into the sort of creature for you on which to take your flight. I'll keep the light on so you know that I was home. If you hear my voice upon the wind, know I'm singing you a song about them fireflies are spying on you. I heard them whispering your name, telling stories of your heroism and all that magic that you bring. Now they're forming you a path to follow, light and shadows one by one, bringing you back closer to me, baby, so I can hold you in my arms. And I will keep the light on so you know that I was home. If you hear my voice upon the wind, know I'm singing you a song. Ooh, la, la, ooh, hey. Ooh, la, la, ooh, hey. Ooh, la, la, ooh, hey. Ooh, la, la, ooh, hey.
I'd be happy if you wrote that song about me. Yeah, I'm feeling, is there anything more that you feel like you'd like to share or name or sing or...
All right, so this is the song, title song, Sapphire. And this song, so I had a really powerful meditation with some friends. And in that meditation, I had a some powerful imagery come of like me living on this beautiful like green permaculture hill with surrounded by community, and I was like, I was really impacted by this image that came. And when I went home a couple weeks later, I wanted to sit with it for a while and let the kind of image come back and like, oh, what was there? What's there for me to understand about this? What part of this is my dream? And I like kind of started writing in this fever dream type of state. I locked into a part of myself, and an energy came online for me that was really strong. And I was journaling, writing for hours, which I don't really do very often. It was pretty interesting, and I had this whole vision of a sapphire sphere kind of orbiting my field. I was just like in my mind, and that in that orbit was this energy or this prayer that was contained inside of it, and I wanted to unpack that, so I wrote all about that. And it contained sort of the original seeds of what became the album Sapphire, which had this image of the sphere that was locked into the glaciers, that was containing this prayer for the planet that was kind of sung and in like into a sphere with all of these codes about grief and healing and the ecstatic and sort of the healing of the nervous system and all of these beautiful earth codes. Like I had imagined that inside of the sphere were the songs that these beings on planet Earth had sung, the original codes of the earth before big human I'm going to call it like destruction had come about, or a lot of development had come and harvested the resources, and some of these other kind of strange thought forms started to be part of Earth. It was like before humans really had their reign. There were these beings that came and could see these like original songs of the land and contain them in these orbs that were lodged in the glaciers, that when the glaciers would start to melt, would start to dissolve these songs into the waters, and it would connect to the people of Earth who were having a hard time grieving the disconnection from that music. And so as those songs started to filter in through the water, and it was connected to this big grief prayer that I was talking about. I was like, oh, my own disconnection and these kinds of things. And I'm receiving this like big orb vision of this like prayers being made on my behalf to reconnect to the earth through my own tears. And so it was this really beautiful experience, and it guided this whole album and the unfolding of some of the mythos and the story of that. And so this song was the original song of that vision that was just talking about this experience of having that sphere come around in the prayer and feeling like I was connected to, this bigger medicine and message that was wanting to support me at that time and wanting to come through to share, and it has. And so this is for the sapphire energy that is, this like beautiful bliss that is expressed on the other side of expressing grief, like the pairing of the two, and for the healthy healing waters of the earth, and for the grieving bodies, really for the grieving bodies. I saw a sapphire spinning around me, humming sounds of the glaciers forming in my frozen heart is melting by the warming night of your soul fire speech, light and poured forth, and I feel you revive me. The codes of the story held in the glory of the earth, and so much night revealed, all of my longing I feel. Hush, don't speak a word. Here in this stillness our love returns. I saw a sapphire spinning around me, shaking holy ground, and my frozen heart is melting, and I can feel it all. I can feel it all. I can feel it all. So sapphire, I can feel it all. So sapphire, I can feel it all. Thanks for having me.